Welcome back to Football Daily, where today we're talking about loanees. That's right, we're looking at every single Premier League loan player today. Now, there's 30 of them, and we're going to be putting them into 5 different categories. I've seen a lot of people online, a lot of football fans online, either moaning or being quite joyous about their loan players. The categories we've got: perma-sign, very obvious. If they're absolutely smashing, this is a player that should be made permanent. Playing well, too early. This is probably going to feature a lot of January signings, a lot of loan players signed late in the January window. Somebody who's playing badly, and sack it off. Quite frankly, this loan move is not working. Let's start with Tottenham Hotspur, where somehow Dejan Kulusevski is still on loan. He's a 2-year loan. Now, this one obviously is going to be made a permanent signing. It's an obligation to buy at the end of it, and quite frankly, it's a sensational signing, isn't it? However you look at it. He's had his injury problems this season. He's only scored 1 Premier League goal since the opening day of the season, but he is a sensational player. Tottenham look a totally different team when he's not in the side, don't they? I think without him in there, they lose all of the penetration down the right. They lose all of the ball carrying ability. They lose all of the chance creation. And when Son's not playing well, it's a disaster. So he is a definite perma-sign. Pedro Porro obviously goes in that category too, because this is kind of an obligation to buy, and there's a few players in this list that are obligations. So Pedro Porro is a €5 million loan in January with a €40 million obligation to buy in the summer. I think they also wrote off 15% of the sell-on fee for Marcus Edwards at Sporting as well. Tim Sherwood, though, opening day, killed him.
I don't want to keep picking on the kid, but he needs to be relieved of his duties at the moment. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because it's his debut, but Pedro Porro is so bad. It's unbelievable. His positioning is absolutely disgusting. I mean, Barnes and Maddison are destroying him down the left-hand side.
Now, I'm not with Tim on this one. Surely you've got to give him more time than 90 minutes on his debut against Leicester. I think Porro is going to be a really good signing. He's still very young. Give him some time. Next up, we have got Mr. Flip-Flop himself, Arnaut Danjuma, a man who did his medical at Everton, did his media at Everton, did his interviews at Everton, and then joined Tottenham. I think it's too early to tell, quite frankly, though, because look, this player has a £27 million option to buy, but do I see him featuring regularly enough across the second half of the season for them to trigger that? I'm not convinced. Look, he's 26. He's probably third choice, you would say, on that left-hand side. You know, if Son was to get injured, I think they play Richarlison there. If Richarlison's to get injured, then I think you'd see Danjuma. Do I see him having big enough impacts in games that he fits in as a starter in this side? No. Therefore, I think they're probably more likely to take that £27 million, put it into a bigger pot to sign a younger player who can have more of an impact across a larger space of time. So for me, right now, too early, but I will be surprised to see this one made permanent. Next up, we've got Clement Lenglet. Now, I feel like he's actually not playing that well. I feel like he's playing badly, to be honest with you. He's played quite a number of games. I think it's 18 appearances for Tottenham this season, but he's not really displaced Ben Davies in the backline, has he? And I don't think Spurs' backline has been rock solid, one of the best in the league. You're looking at it and thinking, how do you penetrate that back three? And he still doesn't really nail down the starting berth there. There's no option, there's no obligation. Do I see them going back to Barcelona and saying, we are definitely taking this player, he's been magnificent for us? No, it's not too early, he's not playing well, but it's not been bad enough that you would say, this is, cut it now, cancel it. So I'm gonna put him in the playing badly category. Chelsea, Joao Felix. Woohoo! I mean, from Chelsea's perspective, it has to be perma-signed, doesn't it? Because he looks like their best player. It's quite jokes they've spent €600 million and their best player is someone who's leaving in the summer. But yeah, just a magnificent footballer. He is so technically gifted, so silky. Do I think they're going to be able to sign him on a permanent is another question. The answer is no. I think that Atletico Madrid, given that they managed to get him to sign a contract extension before he went to Chelsea on loan, didn't put an option and didn't get an obligation to buy in there, will be looking at Chelsea and going, look, you spent €100 million on Mudryk. You've done €120 million on Enzo Fernandez. Joao Felix is your best player. He's still in 23. He's got 4 years left in his contract. We'll have 200 million. They are going to have Chelsea's pants down if Chelsea want to make this permanent. I think it's nearly impossible for it to happen unless the fee is just astronomical, which of course Todd Boehly don't give a fuck about. So never say never, but if they can, they should. Next up, we've got Denis Zakaria. And you know what? I actually think Denis Zakaria was playing well. I actually think he was playing well before his injury. He was, for me, Chelsea's best midfielder of the last month or so. I think he finally developed into a player that found his position in the team. He was carrying the ball really well. And then yet again, he got injured. And this has really been the story of Denis Zakaria's career, hasn't it? Ever since that really bad knee problem at Mönchengladbach in 1920, it's just been constant strains and issues and pulls and illnesses. And I think that's probably the reason it won't be made permanent at Chelsea, because the fee isn't small either, is it? £30 million to make it permanent. For me, it's not going to happen, but I actually think he's playing okay. And I don't think the loan move has been a disaster. There's 30 players to get through, so I'm going to have to fly through some of these, and we can fly through Wolves. Matheus Cunha, that is an obligation. That is going to be made permanent, of course, for about 40 mil, I think. And Boubacar Traore has already been made permanent, I believe. I actually think that Wolves have already done that deal, so we can swing straight through Wolverhampton and on to the next club, which is Manchester United. Wout Weghorst in here. Okay, where do we put Wout Weghorst? Because for me, I think he's actually playing well. And this is probably the bias in me because I love the big 6'6" monster. His goal scoring record hasn't been great at Manchester United, but I don't think the service has been amazing for him. Whenever he comes off, we seem to put more balls into the box, which is a bit bizarre. He is doing exactly what he was bought for, which is a facilitator role for players like Marcus Rashford to get off. I think Rashford looks a lot better with him in the side. And you know, it's been very cheap. I don't think United are going to make it permanent. And I don't think he's playing badly. So, playing well is the right category for me. Marcel Sabitzer, I think probably too early. We've only seen him play 2 games, 2 starts against Leeds, and they aren't really in his best position. You know, he's been playing in the Casemiro role because of Casemiro's ban. I want to see him alongside Casemiro before I make any decision. There's certainly signs there that he is an exceptional player. Some of his passing ability, long range and crossfield and diags is absolutely sensational. And he's definitely got the heart, battling performance, especially in the second game at Ellen Road. But 2 starts is too early. Likewise, I mean, Jack Butland just hasn't played a game, has he? He's been brought in, though, really, as the 3rd choice goalkeeper, so it is too early to tell. Let's go to Connor Cody, who's a definite permanent signing. £4.5 million option. What were Wolves thinking when they put £4.5 million in here? That feels so cheap now. Now, I'm not saying Connor Cody's the best centre-back in the league, but under Sean Dyche, he's perfect for Sean Dyche. He's going to be a leader in the team. He's been one of Everton's better players this season. That option to buy is criminally low. At the other end of the spectrum, I think we may as well just sack this one off. Ruben Vinagre, £37 million option to buy. It ain't happening. I don't see him as Sean Dyche's player. I don't think he's going to play many games at all across the second half of the season. He didn't play barely any games across the first half of the season. Sack it off at this stage. Let's go to Brighton with Levi Colwill, and I think they should try and make this one a permanent signing. Do I think they're going to be able to? I actually think they might. I don't think this is an impossible task given the volume of centre-backs that Chelsea currently have at the club. You know, they bought Benoit Badiashile, who, like Levi Colwill, is a left-footed, left-sided centre-back, probably usurps him in that position. Kalidou Koulibaly is there until 2026. Thiago Silva has signed a contract extension. Wesley Fofana coming back. Trevor Chalobah is still there. Cucurella can play on a left-sided centre-back role in a back 3. I think this might be a possible signing. I don't think it's going to be cheap. Probably more expensive than when, you know, AC Milan signed for Keo Tomori for about 30 million, didn't they? Mark Gahey went, I think, for a bit less than that, about 20. I think if they can get Levi Colwill for like £35 million, it's a brilliant bit of business for Brighton. Still only 19. I think he's played about 10 games this season. Every time I've watched him, been really impressed. I think this is a really nice fit. Let's go to Fulham, where our resident cottager, Henry Hill, informs me that he wants Manos Solomon kept. Of course, he's had his injury problems, hasn't he? But he has looked good, Solomon. When he's been able to get on the field, he just hasn't been able to get on the field loads. Not a huge option to buy, though, so he wants that move made permanent. I think Dan James, you could almost sack it off at this stage. It's just not worked. It's just not worked. Marco Silva prefers other wide options, doesn't he? Very little impact at Leeds. I think Kazawa, I think you could sack it off as well. The wages are monumental coming from PSG. He's been okay. He's not been terrible, but I think it's just the wages for me that means sack that one off. And then Cedric Suarez, who's been there about 2 days. Of course, that move took 16 years to get done from Arsenal. Is too early. Let's go to Nottingham Forest, where I'm sure they would love to permanently sign Dean Henderson. Do I see it happening? No, I don't. I think he's playing well, though. He's playing really well. And I know he's injured at the moment, but I think if Forest could get that deal done, they would love to. My issue is that I think Dean Henderson thinks he can play at a higher level. He's a really good goalkeeper. I think Manchester United might be willing to sell him in the summer, given that, he just hasn't really had a look in there, has he? However, teams like Tottenham potentially wanting a goalkeeper. Are Leicester going to want a goalkeeper in the summer? I think there are, levels above Forest that will want Dean Henderson. Keylor Navas, it's too early to say, isn't it? Because we've not really seen him in a Forest shirt. I would be surprised to see them make this one permanent, given he's going to be on massive wages. He's 36 years old. And does he want to spend his career fizzling out in Nottingham? I would be surprised. This is a short-term one, isn't it? If we're all honest. Next up, we've got Renan Lodi, who's one of the harder players to rank for me. They've got a €30 million option, which seems quite expensive, especially as he's under contract until 2026 at Atletico. His wages are not cheap. He's playing okay. He's not playing badly. I wouldn't say he's absolutely smashing in that left-back slot, but I wouldn't say sack it off. Or would I? I think at the end... Do you know what? I think he's playing okay. I think he's playing okay. I'm just going to put him in playing well. Not sure where else to place Renan Lodi. Forest fans, let me know where you would have placed him, because I'm a bit unsure on Renan Lodi. Chris Wood, obviously too early to tell. I'm intrigued to see how Cooper uses him in this system, because I think at their best, Forest frontline for me is Awoniyi, Morgan Gibbs-White and Brennan Johnson. Much more fluid, much more pacey, much more direct. Whereas Chris Wood, a little bit more of a hold-up man, a little bit more isolated, you would expect from a number 9. Let's see how he gets on, though. Ainsley Maitland-Niles, I think this is probably one I would sack off. Don't really think it's worked there. Yet again, played too many positions. I think it's just 10 appearances this season in a multitude of positions. He's not been helped by the fact Southampton have been absolute garbaggio. So, yeah, he signed the contract extension at Arsenal to 2024 at least, didn't he? So he's going to have options in the summer, you'd think. Arsenal will probably look to get some money for him. Surely it's last chance saloon. Brentford's Hamid Traore. Now that one is an obligation. That's going to be made permanent. He's looked really exciting in the 2 appearances I've seen of him so far. Mateus Vinha couldn't get a look in at Roma. He really couldn't get a look in at Roma. The issue here, though, is, it's too early to start with because he's only just joined. But the issue here is he's not going to join the club in the Championship. It's not going to happen. So if they go down, I think that one will be... Jack Stevens at Bournemouth, he's just not really playing. I think it's 4 appearances this season, 3 starts. I think it's probably one to sack off. I think Bournemouth have got better central defensive options right now than Jack Stevens. And he's got a contract till Southampton until 2024. So literally he's just moving 5 minutes down the road, isn't it? Weston McKennie, I actually think I'm going to put in playing well, In his 3 appearances, the 2 against Manchester United, I think he's been pretty exceptional. For Leeds. Do I think they're going to be able to make that move permanent? Pretty unconvinced. It's a €37 million option to buy. It is not cheap. I think a large part of the reason probably that he joined the club in the first place was because Jesse Marsch was there. Jesse Marsch has now left the club. If they go down, there's 0% chance. If they stay up and they get the right manager, you never know, because he has a really nice partnership with Tyler Adams in there. They work really well together, but the next managerial appointment, I can't stress this enough, is so crucial for Leeds because there's so much talent in that team. Weston McKennie is another one of them, but unless they get it right, I can't see him wanting to stay. Sambi Lokonga is obviously too early. He is going to be a really interesting watch across the second half of the season, I think, Sambi Lokonga, because when he was at Arsenal, I think it was probably a step up too much for him. Don't think the Partey role that he was being utilised in is his ideal role, so I'm interested to see how Patrick Vieira utilises him. Is it going to be alongside a player like Cheikh Doucouré? Is it going to be a backup to Cheikh Doucouré? Is it a defensive midfielder? Let's see. Let's wait and see, but at the moment, it's far too early. Same could be said of Kevin Schade. Haven't really seen enough of him. And then we see Kenny Tete, I think he's looked really lively when he's played. I really like this signing. Playing very well. Let's put him in there. He has played very limited minutes. He also could easily go in the too early category. But finally, Leicester have got a right winger. That's an exciting signing. Scored in his debut. I like it. I have to say I like the Tete move. It's quite a complicated transfer though, because obviously Shakhtar, he was allowed to leave to Lyon because the problems with the war. Then he's kind of gone back from Lyon, gone to Leicester. It's all quite complicated. I'm not sure what happens with the options or the obligations, but I'm pretty sure Leicester have been tracking him for quite a long time. Would like to make this one permanent. He could be in any three of these categories, couldn't he? Either way, it's a good signing. So that was my list of Premier League loanees. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Obviously, if you are a fan of Forest, I want to hear from you about your loan signings. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you later. Auf Wiedersehen.